Happy Friday and happy November, everybody. It is Friday night, November 1st, and we are here to talk about WWE Smackdown. We kind of got a lot here today, Robin, because we got to get into Smackdown. We got to get into some crown jewel predictions. And then on top of that, there was some breaking news earlier in the day regarding WWE releases. So this is kind of a loaded show. But Robin, first and foremost, how are you?
I'm doing well, Denise. Everything's great and glorious. I mean, Roman Reigns said yeet. And I've now seen Roman Reigns say yeet in person and on TV, and he's only ever said it once.
Dude, I didn't even know that you were at the show at SmackDown at the taping. What was it, last week? Because they taped it last week, right?
Yeah, it was last Friday at Barclays. Well, it's my son's birthday on Monday, but, close enough where last Friday I'm thinking to myself, oh, it's at Barclays. Let me scoop up the tickets real quick, take him as a surprise. So I told him, after school, guess what? Or what do you want to do tonight, dude? And he's like, let's watch SmackDown. I was like, where do you want to watch SmackDown? He's like, what do you mean, where do you want to watch SmackDown? I was like, would you want to go? He's like, yeah. And then it almost ended poorly because we're scrambling to get there, right? Like I live in Jersey, so you got to cross two rivers to get to Brooklyn. You got to go over, the Hudson River and the East River. And when it's traffic time, and it was at that time, you can get delayed, but I'm like, all right, we're going to make it. I left like 2 hours to get there, and we get there and we get our food and we go sit down, and the show's like already happening. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going on here? So I start talking to the people next to us. They started early. They started at 6:45 Eastern time, which it said it on the ticket. To be fair, it said it on the ticket, but I thought that meant doors.
Right.
I thought, it's always
usually it's like doors open at a really random hour, and then obviously you know what time the show starts, which is at the top of the hour. I don't blame you for that.
So we get there an hour late, so he's kind of sort of pissed, and I'm like, oh man, I had no idea. But the good thing is, we sat down right when the Cody and Gunther segment from last week started. So like we got that segment, we got the Bloodline segment from last week, we got the Motor City Machine Guns win from last week. So that whole hour, and then the entire second show. And so like all of the big heavies came out twice. Cody came out twice, Gunther came out twice, Jay came out twice, Roman came out twice. So we got a show and a half, and I felt better about it by that point in time. But it's a confusing experience because I've been to a lot of shows. I've never been to one where it's done quite like that. And, you're there and it's Crown Jewel next week, and then all of a sudden it's Crown Jewel tomorrow, but it was last week.
No, that is weird. I've never done a show like that either. And it kind of feels weird because you're like, okay, I watched it, but I can't tell anybody what I saw because no spoilers, and you got to wait until it actually airs. So it is really weird, but I find it, first of all, kudos to you because your son got to go to SmackDown for his birthday. But I loved it that you were like, where do you want to go to watch SmackDown? I would have been like, well, the living room, or you can watch it someplace different. What are the options? No, but that's great, man. And so how was the crowd live and in person? Who did they pop for the most? What was the thing that was the most over? I'm assuming it was the Motor City Machine Guns, maybe them winning.
I still think it's Jey Uso and Roman Reigns, and Jay came out through the crowd, so the whole yeet thing. But the crowd was a little confused too, like at times, because when they do the second show, it's also, remember, it's not laid out quite the same as a regular show because some of the backstage vignettes and explanation, like, so Jey Uso's in the ring accepting the match for Crown Jewel when the context for that had not been set yet. Right? Like you didn't realize, like I knew, all right, now I know they're on the card, but I didn't even know what the hell he was talking about because he's accepting, the match. But Raw had to take place in between SmackDown and SmackDown. That filled in some of those blanks. So there was a bit of a little bit of a confusing aspect in that sense, but the crowd was good. The crowd had a good time, and Motor City Machine Guns got a good ovation when they won. But Jay coming through the crowd, Roman saying yeet, obviously the Cody and Gunther face off at the beginning, all that stuff was well received.
Dude, that's awesome, man, though. I know it's a little confusing, but hey, you pieced things together. It worked out and you guys had a good time. And at least you got to watch a show and a half. I feel like that's a pretty good amount of live wrestling content for Raj and for yourself.
Well, especially because that's what I tried to tell him. Dude, you didn't even know you were going till like 8
Yeah,
hours,
you
6
can't
hours
even
ago.
be bummed about it.
You're not allowed to be upset.
No, and it's the worst because like when it's your mistake and you're the one that's the adult and you're the one that's supposed to be making the surprise, making the treat, you're just like, oh, I'm a terrible person.
But Denise, I do a SmackDown reaction show.
Yeah.
The show is always at the same time.
That's how I felt. Robin, that's how I felt. Everybody here remembers, by the way, when I was supposed to do my Money in the Bank watch along this year. I was at a party, Robin, because I didn't know the show started an hour early. So my stream started and I wasn't even here. I wasn't even in the house. And I'm telling people, oh yeah, I'm going to be live when the main show starts. And people are like, girl, the match already started. The show already started. And I'm like, what? Because when you're used to certain times, that's what you're used to. We're creatures of habits, pro wrestling fans. That's what we are. We're creatures of habit.
Human beings, really.
Yeah.
We mostly like you function the best with the least stress when you have some degree of routine.
That is true. All right. So I want to go ahead and get into these super chats here, see what the people are saying, and we're going to dive right in. So first and foremost, Sheldon Jackson, thank you so much, man. He gifted 10 DWO membership. Sheldon, as always, we appreciate you so freaking much. We got Bayley Darley in the house who goes, Roman yeeted. That was honestly like the big thing. I'm going to change the title of this video and I'm going to put like Roman finally yeeted or something because that was really the big moment of the show, at least one of them for sure.
Last
we got
but not eat.
Yeah. We got last but not yeet. That's amazing. Kevin Zwicker says, hey guys, OG Bloodline reunited. All is right in the world. And it's funny, Robin, because I made a joke online saying, and they did it right in time for the holidays.
Yeah, they can all get together. Whose house do they go to? Rikishi's? Like where do they?
I feel like it has to be Roman's, right? If you're the tribal chief, head of the table, that means it's your house, right? That you go.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought of that as a metaphor, but maybe you must literally do it. Like you must actually sit at the head of the table, big piece of chicken over to Roman.
Exactly. Like he's got to be the one served first. Oh man. Thank you so much to Kevin Zwicker. We got LaRae Johnson here who says, I can't believe Roman Reigns said yeet and I miss Tegan Knox. All right, so actually let's get to that before we get into, I'm going to morph it all in together because it kind of does morph in together. So let's kick things off with the Roman Reigns stuff because that's what we've gotten most of the super chats have been about. So we had a confrontation between the Usos and Roman Reigns. And basically what we had here was, this was so funny. So Jimmy's telling Roman, drop the beef, don't feud with Jay. Let's all get together. Let's all be happy again, right? The crowd starts chanting, drop the beef chants. And I was dying at this because I don't think I've ever heard drop the beef chants ever. So hearing it this time was pretty damn hilarious. Jay goes out there and he tells Roman, you know what? You caused me a lot of mental and physical pain. And he's right. I mean, we all saw this whole entire saga play out between Roman and Jay. We all know the details of that. And he's talking about how he really only linked up and did this match because Solo Sikoa costed him his Intercontinental Championship, which we all knew as well. But then he basically told Roman, if we do this one more time, I am no longer your right-hand man. I am your equal. All of us, we're all equal. And guess what? Roman Reigns agreed. He said yeet for the very first time. The whole time he's been anti-yeet. He's been no yeet. And it's happening now. They're cousins. He's no longer their tribal chief. They're just cousins. Robin, what did you make of this being live? Oh my gosh, Roz's reaction, his favorite coming out there and it being a happy ending. They throw up the ones. I mean, this was a happy ending or a happy start to an ending to a start.
Yeah, a culmination to a saga. How about that?
Yes, there you go.
I was like, you got to see Roman say yeet. But look, I mean, Roman saying yeet is the obvious headline. Of course, you should reformat and everybody should celebrate that. And that's the big pop for the moment. But you referenced the other line that I actually reacted to in real time Because when Roman gets the mic and it's going, all right, now I know, we're headed that way. It was kind of cool to see it turn so quick because the end of the show prior was him sort of standing there as Jimmy and Jay embraced, but really he's saying yeet less than an hour, like an hour later. Right? But the Jay line where he says, I'm your equal now. Like, I think that's almost like remember when The Rock had to acknowledge Roman Reigns? And I felt like in the build-up to WrestleMania, like they needed that moment so that the Roman didn't look like he was smaller than The Rock in the build-up, especially after all of the reign that Roman had. Jay needed that too, with all the popularity that he's gained and winning the Intercontinental Championship. And though that was short-lived and he lost it to Braun Breaker, but still, so that you don't just throw that in the garbage to say like, oh, he's back with the Bloodline. Now he's part of this ensemble again. You recognizing the journey that Jey Uso went on since he's been out of the Bloodline, where he became this super over fan favorite and accomplished things as a singles wrestler. So for him to say, no, we're on the same level, we're equals, I think it was a significant moment for his character and development.
It was, because, I mean, how many times didn't he do and say exactly what Roman said? I remember when Roman would just give them a look and they would be like all trembling in fear, not knowing what to do. They couldn't even look at him wrong, because if they looked at Roman Reigns wrong, well, all hell would break loose. And now, so now to get to this point where we're all now and they're all happy together again, and they're going to go have Thanksgiving and Christmas and whatever else they celebrate. It's really hilarious. But no, I really liked this. I thought it was simple. They got straight to the point and we got everything we wanted. They got a lot done in this short amount of time. And I feel also like, man, I really do think that Jay had a lot of really great lines in this promo, which we talked about, but that was some good stuff there. So we got infamous Raider Loco here who says, yee, what's up, y'all? What's up, Kelly? Wait a minute, what day is it? LOL. JK, first time to respond on a WWE stream in a while. Have a great show. Looking forward to the PLE. The OG Bloodline was dope. Already ready for War Games. That's right. Infamous Raider Loco is usually on our Wednesday AEW show. So thank you so much for hopping on over here and checking out what the Fed is offering. I think it was Reg. I think Reg kept calling it the Fed, or I kept seeing people on Twitter just call it the Fed.
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah.
Right. And so now to me, it's so funny. I'm just like, it's the Fed. It just hits funny. So yeah, thank you so much for coming over here and checking out what's going on. And thank you for the super chat, man. But yeah, in terms of the pay-per-view, though, I am looking forward to that. We'll get into some crown jewel predictions in just a second. But let's go ahead and sort of circle back a little bit to Larice Johnson's super chat here about missing Tegan Nox, because this sort of ties into what we're going to talk about next, which is the 2 releases and then 1 contract not being renewed. That was a story that broke earlier here today. And, we're talking about weird, Robin, you're talking about being at the show and things haven't happened yet and all of that, right? The show was obviously taped. It was on delay, whatever. This one was interesting too, because one of the people that was released today was Indi Hartwell. And then we're going into the situation where she's on the show today, performing on the show. We got Indi and Candice versus Naomi and Bayley. And it was weird, right? It was so weird because you just heard the news that Indi's gone. And then she comes out and she has this match, right? So of course, it kind of made you feel like kind of bad, obviously, like seeing her come out there and do like what her last match, not knowing that it was going to be her last match. But to get into the news here, what went down is Indi Hartwell was released. Tegan Nox was released. And then on top of that, Baron Corbin's contract was not renewed. So I want to start with Indi and with Tegan, Robin, because they've both had some interesting routes. It's weird because you're surprised. Again, we weren't expecting any releases today. But when you hear some of the names that were released here, Tegan is somebody that has been down this path before. She was released in 2021. She then came back. And unfortunately for her, we saw her very, very sporadically, a couple of times on Raw, a couple of times on SmackDown. And she was drafted. I mean, there was a whole lot that went down. But we didn't see her. In fact, I think like a week or 2 weeks ago, someone in the chat had asked like, what's going on with Tegan? And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on with Tegan. No idea at all. And so she never really truly got an opportunity. On top of that, she also had a couple of injuries, which also sort of plagued her run in WWE. And she was just never able to really get the ball rolling. So when I saw Tegan Nox's name on there, I felt bad, but I wasn't surprised, just given the fact that we hardly had seen her. Indi Hartwell was another interesting one, Robin, because Indi spent so much time since 2019 over on NXT. She wins the NXT Women's Championship, and then immediately after, she has to relinquish the title, and because she's drafted over to the main roster, right? Which is supposed to be like a great, happy moment. You're on the main roster, phenomenal. But Indi instead is, again, only shown sporadically. She has a couple of tag team matches with Candice LeRae, but it doesn't really ever go anywhere. The team never really got over. I don't know, they just didn't really get a chance. It just didn't really work out for them. And so Indi was released, and I thought that one was interesting because more so in the last 3 weeks, I feel we have actually been seeing more of Candice and Indi than we have, given the months before. So I thought, oh, maybe they really are starting to give Candice and Indi a real shot here. But then there you go, she's released. Let's start there. What were your thoughts on Tegan and Indi's releases?
Well, look, I mean, I have two separate lanes of thoughts, right? Like, I have one that's personal, and I understand and empathize. I mean, I don't know the timeline of when they were informed, but I've been on a lot of radio shows, and they obviously, none of them currently exist. And in some of those instances, you're told before your last show, and your last show's happening, and you do it. In other instances, you do your last show and then you're told afterwards. Regardless, never a fun experience. I've also been part of a public layoff. I mean, I share everything with my audience, so every other trial and tribulation I've had, they know about, but that's been from my own mouth. I was part of a public layoff in 2017 with ESPN, where it was high profile because a whole bunch of talent was cut at the same time. So when that happened, there was rolling announcements by reporters when they found out who the names were. So your name was put out there. This one's gone. Here's the next one gone. Here's the next one gone, So it actually helped me at that point in time because it allowed people to rally around you a little bit. But nonetheless, it's not a fun experience to, for everybody to see, oh, you just lost your job, right? Like, so from that human element standpoint, I feel for them. My heart goes out to them. And I hope, it turns out for the best for them, because oftentimes that is what happens. And for anybody out there listening, this is my actual honest advice. If you ever go through this and it's impossible to process in the moment, but it almost always turns out for the better. You can never feel that way in the moment because you just can't. You can't. But when you get to that next thing and it officially is part of your past, you can look back on it and go, oh yeah, it was for the better. And in fact, I'm living that right now. But from the fan side of it, I can't say like it's shocking or surprising. Like, you're referencing, Denise, a little bit more TV time or, a couple run, but nothing of significance. Nothing where we came away saying, all right, this was the main story. This was the key cog. Oh, this person's going to win Money in the Bank. This person's going to win the Royal Rumble. Any of that stuff. So the names that were released today, I can't tell you. I was shocked by it as a fan because it didn't feel like there was a real emphasis or place or role at the current moment for any of those participants.
And the good thing too is that now, and we've seen it time and time again, where people are released, there are other options, right? Of course, depending on who you are, how big of a name you are, how good you are, all of that stuff. You can end up in AEW, you can end up in TNA, you can end up in, other places. And so it's just a matter of, I guess, what you put into it. And then also, for example, I just interviewed Cameron Grimes, Trevor Lee. And one of the things that he had said, because he was also somebody who went through this, he was on NXT and he got called up. He got drafted over to SmackDown. The dream came true. You get drafted. And we all know how it went down for Cameron. It didn't go down really at all. He was not really shown on TV. It felt like he was just completely forgotten about. And so then he gets released, right? Okay, now fast forward to, now he's getting back out there. He's doing indies. He's doing anything, right, to get his name and continue to grow in the space. But he had said, my one of the things that I think gave him hope and keeps him going is that we have also seen people return to the company. We have seen Bronson Reed, for example. He was released. He went off to New Japan Pro Wrestling, did his thing, did the indies. Bam, now he's back, and look at him. He's in this big program with Seth Rollins. You have people that have Karrion Kross was another one. He left, came back. Okay, now he's back. There's a couple other names I'm not thinking about right now, but we have also seen people return. And another thing that Trevor mentioned that kind of stuck with me too is he was talking about how a lot of the top stars right now in WWE are of older age, right? They're like in their 40s. And he said, like, dude, like I'm 31 right now. So I still feel like I got a lot of time to make myself into a name again and come back. I mean, God, Cody Rhodes was gone from WWE and left and rebuilt his name and came back. Drew McIntyre, those are probably some of your, really top successful people that have been through these situations. We have seen so many other people just really build names for themselves. Deonna Purrazzo, Chelsea Green. Oh my gosh, how can I forget Chelsea Green? Chelsea Green is another one who left and came back, and now look at her. She's freaking thriving. So it does happen, and it can happen, and it's just more of like what you do and what you make of it. Now, the other person we have to get into, Robin, is Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin had been with the company since 2012. Baron Corbin has been there forever. And his contract was basically not renewed. And that one I thought was interesting too, because obviously a little bit of different circumstance than Tegan and Indi, right? He's gotten a lot more opportunities. Again, been with the company for a while. But he was somebody that went down to NXT. And in NXT, he sort of found his footing again. He got his groove back. Everything that he did with Braun Breaker, it was great. Baron Corbin became likable again. Braun Breaker was showing more personality. It was going well. And then we all knew Braun Breaker was going to get called up. We all knew that he was meant for superstardom. So he goes to the main roster. He does his thing. And I remember we were talking about it on the NXT show. Well, what does this mean for Baron Corbin? Is Baron Corbin going to stay on NXT? Is he going to go up to the main roster? What is going to happen? So he ends up getting drafted and he goes back up to the main roster. And since he got drafted, all we saw him was like partner up with Apollo Crews, another guy who was also on NXT and got drafted back up. This was all weird, Robin, because we talk about this on the NXT show all the time. That men's division is slim. There aren't that many guys in that division. So it's weird to me seeing people, especially men, that could be used in that division get called up, not used, and then released. Same thing we saw with Dijak. I mentioned Cameron Grimes. Now we're sitting here talking about Baron Corbin. Of course, a little bit more different for Baron Corbin, but still nonetheless. I feel bad, Robin, because I had just interviewed Baron Corbin. We talked 2 times in the last 3 months. And if you guys had seen the interview, you guys will get what I'm talking about with this, because Baron was really, really open and honest about how the last thing that he had done on the main roster before going to NXT was that JBL storyline. And he basically said that thing basically killed his passion. He was done. He wasn't really feeling like himself. He was feeling all these negative emotions. And he went down to NXT and he said that Shawn Michaels was really the person that really gave him this chance to find himself again. And he said during, being in NXT, being there, being with all these people that have a lot of hope, they gave me a lot of hope. They gave me hope to start chasing after things that I thought were no longer an option for me, like being a champion, like being at the top of the card of WrestleMania, all of this. And so I do feel bad because I saw that Corbin was in this very hopeful space. And now fast forward a month or 2 later, and when was that? I spoke to him at Bash at Berlin. That wasn't even that long ago. And now fast forward and, he's been released. I mean, on the bright side, he did have more experience in WWE. He did have a lot more moments and, obviously made more money. So that's good. But yeah, so what did you think when you saw the Baron Corbin news?
Yeah, I mean, it's another one where that's tough because you talk about NXT and that experience, but there's, I think, a time limit for somebody like Baron Corbin just because of the way they've branded and we've branded NXT in our heads, right? It's the developmental program. So when somebody goes back to NXT, they're there for a minute, but they're not going to live there generally, right? It's a little bit of Ricochet back up to the no pun intended with the guy in AEW now, back up to the WWE. Baron Corbin's they've tried a lot of different things with him. And it just hasn't quite hit. It's tough because he's got a degree of charisma. Like there's something, he does have a degree of charisma, and it hasn't exactly been captured. I mean, it's the same spirit of what I said before, where you mentioned it, the different places you can land now. And I know WWE is even starting an actual like development program, right? I read that earlier this week, not to mention the other companies. And there is a benefit sometimes to being the big fish in a smaller pond, because that can put your name out there and let you find your groove and your identity. Because forgetting even people who have been released and found their way back, think about some of the legends who it took them a long time to find it. You know, Mean Mark Calloway or Stunning Steve Austin. You know, there are characters and guys who had a lot of experience before they found the thing that really worked for them and skyrocketed their career. Now, I got to be frank, not everybody's going to make it, right? Like, you know, you can't say this about everybody that gets released and then think everybody's going to come back to superstardom because you're thinking with your heartstrings. But it has happened. And there are other opportunities, other places. There are routes back. And sometimes there is just that little tweak that can change everything and change everything very quickly. Because Austin 316 says, I just whooped your ass, had t-shirts selling by the next day, right? Like that's how quickly it could happen for him. Again, Corbin has something there. There's something there. But at the same time, I don't feel like he didn't get a chance. I feel like he got a lot of chances in WWE, and for whatever reason, it never quite hit right.
Right. I mean, the broke ass Corbin stuff, that was great too. But a lot of it with Baron just didn't necessarily go too well. And a lot of it, you know, I don't even know what to say. It's a lot, because a lot of it was under, you know, Vince McMahon's creative. It was things that he saw for him. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. It really is a tough one. But obviously, we're wishing everybody the best of luck, and hopefully they find where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to do with their careers. We got Chris Ludek here, who sends in a super chat. Thank you so much to Chris. He says, I wasn't a fan of Corbin in 2018 through 2019, but his second NXT run won me over. I think he can have a McIntyre-like success in TNA and come back and be a top guy. Yeah, he was somebody that, again, I'm telling you, that NXT run, it won people over again. Like if you were watching that, if you were keeping up with it, you became a fan of Baron Corbin, I feel. And I feel like because that's the recent version of Corbin in my mind, it makes it a lot more like, oh, I feel so bad, you know? So yeah, Chris, thank you so much. We got Anthony Giuliano here, who says, who else do you think will get released? Hopefully nobody right now. I don't want to speculate on anybody, because it's at the end of the day, it's like, you know, losing your job. We've all been there, Robin. Like you talked about some of your experiences. I've been there. I've lost so many freaking jobs because of things that are completely out of your control. Completely out of your control. It's like people just run out of money. People don't have enough money to do things, or whatever the situation is, especially like in these type of entertainment businesses. Ain't nothing like forever. That's why, like, my rule is, Robin, honestly, based off of my experience, that's why I'm like, I gotta have multiple sources of income, because if I just rely on one thing, it creeps me the hell out, because I've been in that situation where I have relied on one thing and lost that one thing and found myself with nothing, which is terrible. So definitely don't want to think of anybody else who might get released, but of course we know how it works, and we know that releases come. They happen more often now than ever, I feel.
They don't generally happen in waves with WWE, do they, though? They usually happen like the group. I mean, not to say there will be future ones. That's a guarantee. But they're generally like the midst of the current one. We usually find out all around.
Right.
Time, right. Like not like a week from now, there'll be more. It's whenever they decide the next, wave is.
So I feel there's been times where it's been, oh, these are like NXT talent, then there's office people and categories like that separated. Yeah. We've seen that. But yeah, in terms of this one here, when I started to see that Sean was putting out the releases, I was expecting there to be at least a few more names announced, because usually there's at least 10 to 15 or so or more so names that do get dropped. 3 is just, well, it's just, it feels a little bit more random. So I was expecting more just based off of past seen more people in the past get released all at once, but this time it looked like it was just those 3 people. But I guess we'll find out more. We'll see if nothing happens in the next week or so, then we'll just wait until the next wave of releases, like they do come, which is unfortunate, but I guess it's just, it's just the business. But Anthony Giuliano, thank you so much for asking and for sending in the super chat. All right, so let's go ahead and get into everything else that went down on I was gonna say Crown Jewel, on SmackDown, because there was quite a bit. So we covered the Roman Reigns Uso stuff. I want to get into the women's fatal 4-way, Robin, because I think this was my favorite thing on the show, aside from Roman Reigns yeeted. The Piper, Niven, Bianca Belair, Io Sky, Lash Legend fatal 4-way. Oh, I had a blast with this. All super different wrestlers that all brought something different here. Oh my God, when Bianca lifted up Lash Legend for the KOD, I was thinking, oh, she's got it. I mean, I've seen this woman lift up Otis, who weighs, however many pounds, right? So I was thinking, like, Bianca's got it. Yeah. But Bianca had like a slight moment of struggle, and I don't think it was necessarily, I don't think it was the weight, but more so how tall Lash Legend is. Like, Lash Legend is so tall, so obviously I think that's going to change the dynamics of her hitting and executing the KOD. And so for a moment I was just there, like, in anticipation of, holy shit, is she going to get it? But she did. She hits the KOD on Lash Legend, but already Io Sky was set up on the top rope. She hits her moonsault, steals Bianca's victory, gets the 1, 2, 3. And before this, we also got a Jade Cargill Lash Legend stare off, which was what I had been waiting for a while now. But I loved this match. It was so much fun. Robin, what'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point about the varying styles. I like the way that it finished. I thought that was a great, finish. I'm a fan of Io Sky. I like her aura and I like her vibe. For somebody who doesn't really speak or talk, much, she's able to get that across, which is a talent. So yeah, I like the way that went down, and it's just, I mean, I feel like a broken record in some senses, but it's amazing the depth of talent on the women's side, and now you're bringing new participants in like Lash Legend, and then you're like, okay, facing off with Jade Cargill, who still hasn't really done all that much in the WWE yet. So you're teasing potential future things at the same time, while throwing back to, past feuds like Bianca and Io Sky, who have been in the ring together before. So I thought all that was executed well. The match told a story well. And they pulled it off at the end while, building towards other things.
Yeah, this is getting me excited. I think at this point, Lash Legend is like main roster talent at this point. I feel they're doing so much. She looks so good. She hasn't looked like a fish out of water at any point during these big matches, and she's getting attention from the audience. I feel like that's it. Like, maybe, I don't know if they want to, make it like official or what, but it feels like it should be at this point that Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson are main roster talent, or hell, they can just kind of do both and get away with it for as long as they can.
Yeah, I don't think you bring them up for this long and then send them, like if it's like a special occasion or special event, if you're getting a cup of tea or your first match. I think they did it with Carmelo before he came up.
That's true.
But they said, he was getting his debut in WWE, and then it wasn't very long before he was back up anyhow. But I feel like the run here, I don't know if it's a tryout or was always the plan, but has been too extended. And specifically in her case, no offense to, the two of them, but in Lash Legend's case, she feels like she has a chance to really be one of them once.
She does. She really does. Like, I can see her in there mixing it up. Like, I'm telling you, when I saw her and Jade Cargill, I thought, yes, this is exactly the confrontation that I've been anticipating. And I want to see them. I know that they're still both, they still both, And Lash Legend, is coming off of NXT, right? So she still has a lot more experience to gain. She's still going to be a little bit more green in comparison to people like Bianca or Io or Piper, of course. And then Jade Cargill, she's somebody that's also been getting her footing. She's improved vastly, of course, but she's still not on the same level as Bianca. So when I think of the idea, I'm like, okay, I do like the idea of Lash and Jade, but at the same time, they both sort of need, I think, a little bit more experience there just so that we can get the match that we truly want. But regardless, dude, I'm so excited for what the future looks like for Lash Legend. Like, I'm a fan, man. I'm a fan, especially because like of her size, and I just think she has a good look. So it's exciting to see what that is going to come out to. But Io getting the victory here. I'm glad. I honestly didn't know who was going to win this. I felt like it could have gone any direction. And I didn't even have like a pick or anything because it just felt like you could really make a case for anybody. But Io winning, I was glad because Io is someone that we know is a good wrestler, but sort of sometimes always gets forgotten about in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been since WrestleMania time where like she had a run, right? She's the one who beat Bianca, right? I mean, like, so she's had her moments there, like, and I don't want to say like she's forgotten about per se, but sometimes
she just doesn't have the same spotlight that Bianca or your Jades would have, people like that.
Well, and sometimes the run can be fleeting. And this is the kind of thing that makes you think, okay, they don't see it that way. They see her as a bona fide person, a bona fide main eventer, title holder, whatever you want to call it, to circle back for her to get the win like that. Because it did catch me a little bit by surprise. I mean, I'm with you. I didn't have a definitive choice for it, but I certainly wouldn't have been confident in picking Io Sky before the match began. And that's why I liked the way she pulled it off, because it was, a bit underhanded in a sense. All's fair in the way of the match goes, but she did steal the win. And at the same time, she did something impressive in doing so, right? Like that shows off her skill.
Well, let me tell you, if you want to be confident and impress in your skills, whether you're in a one-on-one, a triple threat, or hell, a fatal four-way, I don't know. Make sure you guys get Blue Chew code Denise. Are you jobbing now in bed? Do you have dreams of main eventing in the sack? Well, have no fear. Blue Chew is here to help you become the champ. Soon you'll make your babyface comeback and get the finish. Blue Chew is the place to go for chewable versions of sildenafil, tadalafil, vardenafil. These ingredients help men achieve stronger, harder, and longer lasting erections for sexual activity. Woo! The chewable tablets help fight off all forms of ED, which can include performance anxiety and maintaining an erection long enough for sex. A Blue Chew subscription includes a free online consultation, 24/7 medical support, a prescription for chewable, sildenafil, tadalafil, vardenafil, if approved, and discreet delivery straight to your door every month, all from the comfort of your own home at affordable prices. No more in-person doctor visits, no more waiting for appointments, and best of all, no more awkwardness. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to the description box of this video and click on the link and make sure to use the promo code Denise. I was so happy, Robin, when you were giving me all of these great words to use. I was like, yes, keep going. I got this. We got this.
That was a hell of a segue. That is a spectacular ad. I think that's the second time I've seen it live.
You're like, I'm scared. You're like, I'm scarred. I'm scarred for life.
And throw all your ones up. Yeah.
Hey, get your ones up, everybody. Get your ones up. Oh, man. We got a couple of super chats here I want to dive into, so let's get to it. We got Infamous Raider Loco who says, women's fatal four-way love with time, do it again tomorrow. I mean, yeah, of course, with more time, you can get an even more banger match. But yeah, I feel you, man. That was good stuff. We got Anthony Giuliano here who says the Street Profits are not happy with the creative, with the stop and go. So we did see the Street Profits in action today against Pretty Deadly. This was a short and sweet match, Robin. I liked what we saw here. We saw some fun little cat and mouse stuff where Pretty Deadly was like cornering Montez Ford, and then Montez Ford just does like a flip over both of them. I kind of thought that was cool too. But no, this was fun. I thought it wasn't a long match by any means, but I think they just went in there, hit a couple of spots. Street Profits get their win. That's where we were at. Nothing much else to say.
Yeah, I don't think it was anything of consequence. I'll say, there was a period of time Montez Ford felt like the next big star, and we haven't quite gotten there. So that could be the spirit of how somebody feels, but I wouldn't say this match said anything. I like Pretty Deadly, by the way.
Me too.
I think they got potential. I like the little spot with Lin-Manuel Miranda, which I saw in person. He did a good job selling it with the face. Their music fits. I don't know. Something's there. They can do it right. Like if they can capture that feeling and turn it into a real run and get put over. I'm on the Pretty Deadly train. I think they're the perfect kind of annoying heelish tag team.
I think they need more backstage segments because they're such unique characters that you can really have fun with some of their backstage skits. If they did more of that, because they used to do them a whole lot on NXT, I feel like if you did more of that on the main roster, I feel like you can get some good stuff. Because when I think of them, I always think of the oh my gosh, I meant to say the Fashion Police, but that's the actual show with Tyler Breeze and Fandango. Remember when they used to do their Fashion Police? I thought that was pretty hilarious. And so I kind of think of Pretty Deadly in the same sort of sphere of comedy that I think of them. So I feel like what got them over was all of those backstage skits. And that's what I would want to see with Pretty Deadly, something similar where you can get to see their personalities a little bit more and have the people just because I think that's the one thing that's missing. Like, I think people like Pretty Deadly. We like the characters. We like them as wrestlers. Okay, cool. But there hasn't been that moment, I think, that has really connected us to the team,
Yeah, well, what's that big backstage vignette or something like, the whole idea of people being annoyed by them works. I mean, I think Michael Cole sold it well on commentary too. He was sarcastic about, everything he heard about their show or whatever it is. What are they doing, the Broadway thing? So, but yeah, that's something to marinate and think on. Like what could be the angle that puts it over the top? Because the hard part for them is it's hard to take them seriously, right? The whole thing is that you kind of aren't supposed to take them seriously. So how can you keep that energy, but also make the audience take them seriously as far as what they can actually go out and accomplish?
Also, thank you so much to Kyler James. He was like, they were called the Fashion Police. Thank you. I was like, am I wrong? I started to second guess myself because I did watch the show Fashion Police. I used to love that show. So I wasn't sure if I was mixing up mixing things up here. But anyways, thank you so much to Kyler who's modding for us here tonight. All right, we got Anthony Giuliano here who says the releases are not a bad thing in the wrestling world because they can rebrand themselves and get more opportunities in other companies. Can't wait to see everyone being successful. Yeah, Robin, like I said, everything really just depends on the person. Honestly, there's people that we see that get released. Maybe you don't hear from them ever again. And then there's people that we see that get released that all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, this person is killing it. They're on fire. It really is what you make of it and how you handle it.
I mean, if my last career setback hadn't have happened, I would not have taken the initiative to do the things I'm doing now, which are really paying off. So, like, again, it sucks in the moment. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but it can turn out for the best. I can't say it's going to be the case. I mean, for everybody necessarily, but for my own personal experiences, every time something like that has happened, the grass has indeed been greener or the other door has opened. But the best advice is to kick that sucker open yourself. In the wrestling business, it's a little harder because there are promotions and you got to find a way to get yourself on TV, way to sell your character, way to get in front of the audience. But there are more options nowadays than ever. And again, it only takes that one flip of a character if you've got it, right? Like some people just don't have it. And I don't know of the releases today if I would say necessarily like, oh, I can't believe this happened because this was clearly a star that was waiting to explode. But like I mentioned, Baron Corbin has flashed it with the charisma. So you never know when a slight tweak in character. Because I would have never in a million years thought the freaking ringmaster would become Stone Cold Steve Austin.
No, but it's true. It really, really is true. And it's funny because as we go and we think about, like, we continue talking about this conversation, it's just like I'm thinking of more and more examples as we continue through. So yeah, it again, we're no longer in a place where you only have to be in one specific company to make a living. And I think that's the most important part. You don't have to be just in WWE to make a living. You can make a living in other places, or hell, in multiple places. Like, that is an option now. And I feel like that's the best part. But again, and a lot of people too, when they get released, of course, like you mentioned, it's sad, it's heartbreaking. But one of the key things that I always hear, whether it's my interviews or in somebody else's interviews, is you always hear that person say, freedom. I've got freedom now to do all of these things. Look at Nick Nemeth. Nick Nemeth's been like everywhere now. And that was something he mentioned in our interview too. I've got freedom to do just about anything that I want. And I think that freedom, it's nice. It really is nice. And again, it is heartbreaking, but I do think that if you just, make it happen, good things can happen. So we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll return. You don't know. Infamous Raider Loco says, I'm dead. That Blue True intro was wild. I'm dead. Welcome to Speak Now Pro Wrestling, although Infamous Raider Loco is a regular. So thank you so much, man. We got Anthony Giuliano here who says, I know this is old news last week, but what was everyone's reaction to Samantha Irvin leaving WWE and saying she did not enjoy announcing? So Robin, I did put out a video with my initial reaction from the news, of Samantha leaving. And at that point, when I put out the video, we didn't really have too much to really go off of. But where we're at now since then was she responded to like a fan or something saying that she was not a fan of ring announcing. We know that she had given her notice months in advance for that she was going to be done with WWE. And we know that she is, according to Ricochet, not going to AEW, that she wants to focus on her singing career. So those are some of the additional details that have came out. I will start off by saying Samantha is my favorite ring announcer. I love her as a ring announcer. I think she's great. And I was sad. I was very sad when she left. But hearing her say that this was something that she wasn't necessarily in love with, I 1000% get that, Robin. I 1000% get it, because I know from the outside, we look at that and we're like, wow, look at Samantha. She's got this great spotlight. She gets to ring announce these, main events at WrestleMania. That's what we see, but we don't know what her, perspective of that is. We don't know what she might feel when she's doing the job or when she's on the road. We have no idea. We have no idea what she herself, her experience is. If she says she wasn't happy, dude, it's her life. She's not happy. Okay, you can move on and do something else, which is what she did. So I know that there's been a lot of negativity surrounding her exit from the company and some of the things that she has said online. But I just see it as like, let her do her. At the end of the day, you got to do what makes you happy.
Well, it's almost shocking to see someone as good at what she did say they didn't actually enjoy what they did. Because that doesn't almost compute. Like, I'm not disagreeing with anything you said.
No, I agree. That's what I thought too. I agree. Yeah.
It just doesn't almost compute. Now, I will say my spider sense tingled a little bit in the last several months by nothing specific, but her social media activity in a way was signaling to me someone who was maybe trying to do something else or wanted attention on themselves for perhaps something else, whatever the case may be. I just remember it's not the type of thing I would scroll past.
You're like, wait, stop right there. Hold on. Let me look really quickly.
This has caught my attention.
I would pop onto freaking Instagram and be like, oh shit, wow, Samantha girl. Get the two fingers, start zooming in. So I get it.
But that did kind of, like, she hadn't been doing that the whole time, had she? Like, so it makes sense in retrospect if that did occur during the time period since she had told them she was leaving and then, before she left, because she is trying to rebrand herself or, raise her profile for her next endeavor. And I just remember thinking to myself a couple times when I was like, interesting. Like I don't even have a word for it. It did
more of a carefree type of Instagram types of posts, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
like regardless, there's a lot of people that are very more open, right? They'll post those kinds of pictures, and great, it's fine, do what you want, but at the end of the day, we know that employers are not always happy with that stuff. And we know WWE, how they feel about, like, we saw a Mandy Rose, she got released because of all this stuff on not only fans, but the other platform that she was on. And so you get what they sort of feel about those types of posts, which is weird too for me, because I see a lot of people that do post risque types of posts, and they're still, everything's fine. But I don't know anymore. I know it's something that you just gotta think twice about it, right? At this point, like, I know that's something as a female, Robin, I'm not gonna go and post something that's too risque. Why? Because I know that my job is. It wouldn't align with it wouldn't align with me, but it wouldn't align with my jobs. Like, I would be nervous about how my employers might look at me following that. Is that going to take away some of my credibility? Is that going to, all of those things are things that you legitimately have to think about. And of course, it depends on what everybody does. And, everybody has different jobs and whatnot. But for me, that would be something that I would not be able to do, because I would consider it too risky for my career and my type of employment.
Yeah, and I mean, like, look, there was a different era of WWE where that was all women did. So, I mean, I maybe wouldn't think the same way. And maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to actually go back and check the dates on all these things. But the way I perceived it was there was a bit of a change. Like, this was not something that had been happening the entire time. I thought of her like, here's ring announcer Samantha Irvin. And then at a certain point, I thought, ring announcer Samantha Irvin and Instagram/social media celebrity, so Samantha Irvin.
And she blew up, though. Like, that's one of the things that I give her so much credit for, is the fact that she was able to blow up her Instagram account. This is so hard to do. And she had more followers than people that have been there longer, people that, are pretty popular too. She's more followers than a lot of the wrestlers. Like, that's crazy. It's awesome.
A lot of dudes would be her ring announcer, I mean, you wouldn't need. You might be able to put Blue Chew out of business.
No, it's wild. It's wild. But look, I really do think that I really do think that Samantha did the right thing by her. That was the thing. She was unhappy. She, I think she said that. I don't know if did she say this in the comments too, or she said that she had thought of, she wanted to do more other things like interviewing and other types of roles, but I guess WB told her, like, no, like, this is what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, no, and she'll get the opportunity to go do that and pursue that, and hopefully she accomplishes all that. And I would imagine, if for whatever reason at a point in the future she decides she would like to come back and, maybe at that point in my life I didn't like it, but looking back on it, it's a fond memory now. I'd like to do it again. I would imagine she'd be welcome back.
Like, regardless, she has fans, she has people that are interested in her, so that's going to help her promote, her music and any other things that she decides to, she's got 1.3 million followers on Instagram. Like, come on, like, you're telling me you're not going to be promoting, she's not going to be promoting whatever it is that she's going to be doing next. Like, that's wild. But anyway, so good for her. We'll see what happens. But thank you so much for asking and for sending in that super chat as well. All right, so I do want to go ahead and kind of get into Crown Jewel and mix it in with what we saw here on SmackDown. So let's kind of run down this card really quickly. So, of course, we already talked about Roman and the Usos and stuff that happened on SmackDown, but we are getting the Roman Reigns and the Usos versus the Bloodline. Robin, who's your official pick for this match to take the W tomorrow?
I mean, I keep saying you got to keep building the Bloodline and give them the credibility, but right after the reunion, I don't know. I'm going. You got to please that crowd over there. I'm saying Roman and Jimmy and Jay.
I feel you. I feel the exact same way. All right. We also got the undisputed WWE Championship match: Cody Rhodes versus Gunther, the world's heavyweight champion. Excuse me, and champion versus champion for the Crown Jewel Championship. There you go. This is the match where I'm kind of like, I'm a little bit torn, Robin. because I really like Gunther as a champion and also really like Cody Rhodes as a champion. I feel like Cody Rhodes should be defeating Gunther. If Gunther wins, I'm okay with that too, though.
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite. I feel like Cody's going to win because Gunther was the one that, had the upper hand at the end. But I think it does more for Gunther than it does for Cody. And it's
That's
one of those
the true thing too. Yes.
It's one of those times. It's like, remember when Jay pinned Roman and he was the first person to pin Roman in however long, but you knew the belt wasn't on the line, so you could get away with it. This is another circumstance like that where Cody's not losing the title if he loses to Gunther, but Gunther could be elevated in the process. So that's what I would do. I would have it be Gunther.
Damn, I'm telling you, like, I'm good with that because the key thing is it would do more for Gunther than it would for Cody. I don't know. I'm torn. I'm good with whatever. All right. We also have the women's crown jewel championship match. We're seeing the WWE women's champion Nia Jax versus the women's world champion Liv Morgan. We also got to see Liv Morgan in action today against Tiffany Stratton. She defeated Tiffany Stratton by pulling up she did a roll up and she also pulled her tights though. So she kind of got an unfair victory over Tiffany Stratton. And we also got a confrontation with Tiffany and Liv, where she basically told her, hey, if I win, does that mean I get to keep Daddy Dom? I need a little dirty in my life. I kind of thought that was cute and funny, but I'm still, I guess my predictions for this is a little bit more basic. I am expecting Tiffany Stratton to cash in. I feel like that's it. This has to happen now at Crown Jewel. It's now or never. I think it does need to happen. And in terms of who I think will win, I'm going to say Liv Morgan will win and then Tiffany to cash in.
Yeah, too many teases for it not to happen. But I think I go the other way just because when there that little moment with Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton where Nia was like, what did you say about all that? And Tiffany Stratton was like, I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to get into Liv Morgan's head. And they built a little tension between Nia and Tiffany, so I could actually see it being Nia Jax winning, Tiffany Stratton cashing in on her.
I feel you. I feel you on that. They've been building that tension with Tiffany and Nia, so you're right on that. We also got Seth Rollins versus Big Bronson Reed. Look, I'm a big Bronson Reed fan. Everybody knows that. I'm putting all my money on Bronson Reed here.
Oh, interesting. Even after, he had
after everything. Oh, and they also made the whole thing about like Seth having, what was it, like his back or something? He had to go to the medical facility after the big spot that happened, the Death Valley driver off of the truck that they did on Raw.
Yeah, and Bronson Reed was obviously the one who sent him off the program, right? That's tough. It's kind of the same thing as the Gunther Cody situation for me, where do you lose everything you've built with Bronson Reed by not, doing it? So I'll go with you. Big Bronson Reed. Give me Big Bronson Reed, but I'm not confident.
All right. And I'm not even know if we're going to get the match after all, because they also kind of teased not doing the match too. That was another thing. Well, we'll find out. So far right now, it's still on the card here. All right. Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton. By the way, today on SmackDown during our main event, we had Randy and Cody versus Gunther and Ludwig. Randy and Cody get their win, but afterwards, from behind, Kevin Owens attacks Randy Orton with the chair. And we also see Gunther choke out Cody Rhodes to close out the show.
I'm going to go KO. I think everything they've done to get to him to this point and to flip him, it's anticlimactic if all of a sudden he's eaten a loss right away, right out of that. And I think that's something that could be a series of matches. You can keep this whole thing going with Cody involved too until you eventually you got to get to Cody and Randy, but I think you can take your time to get there. And I think the most compelling way to take your time to get there is KO getting the best of Randy in the very beginning of it.
I think Kevin Owens should also get this win. I think he's just a little bit more angrier. He's a little bit more frustrated. That's what we've been seeing in his little car videos that he's been doing. So I feel like Kevin Owens needs to get this win, because if not, it's going to be like, you did all that talking. You caused all that drama for what? Just to take this L right now to Randy? No, thanks. I think Kevin Owens needs to get this win too. All right, we got the triple threat match for the United States Championship. LA Knight defending his title against Andrade and Carmelo Hayes. This one to me is interesting because I feel like so much of the attention so much of the intrigue rather was between Andrade and Carmelo because of the 7 matches that they had. But then there was also the stuff between LA Knight and Andrade, and then LA Knight and Carmelo Hayes. So it all sort of intertwined. But I guess my favorite thing in this match was primarily what we were seeing between Andrade and Carmelo Hayes. Although Andrade had some really great liners against LA Knight. This has been going on for a really long time now that I think about it.
And maybe it keeps going because when the 7th match and no contest, set this up. So I think if I had to guess, LA Knight wins in a way where Andrade and Carmelo Hayes want to have another match.
Oh my God, you think they'll do that again?
I do.
Oh my God, I feel like that would be too much. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is too much already.
One more for all the marbles, even though there isn't anything on the line.
Shit, I'm gonna go. I don't even know, to be honest. I feel in my honest opinion, it doesn't really make a difference to me right now who is the United States champion. I feel like LA Knight needs to go on, and I think LA Knight will retain. And the only reason why I think he'll retain is because I think there's still more that can be done with him as United States champion. However, if Andrade and Carmelo Hayes were to win, I wouldn't hate that either. But I think that the fans I don't know if they're ready to move on from LA Knight yet as champion. So we'll see. All right, we also got the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair versus Kairi Sane and Io Sky versus Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson and Chelsea Green and Piper Niven in a Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match. This should be fun. I'm expecting all sorts of shenanigans to unfold here. I want to see Jade Cargill and Bianca retain. I think they should because I'm still on the boat of keeping them strong.
Yeah, except for the Io Sky thing is intriguing to me considering the way it happened. Like you keep building on that. Eventually we need more with Bianca and Jade. And we need the tension. They've slowed
their role a little bit.
Yeah, they have. And I don't know if you're going to get there in tandem without some form of tension. I don't know if the road being easy is going to do it. So yeah, let's go with Io and company keeping it going.
Oh, okay. All right. We got to get into these super chats, but just as a friendly reminder, tomorrow I will be doing a Crown Jewel watch along, and then immediately after, Robin's going to be joining me for the post show. So we'll be here live, hanging out and talking about, everything that happened with Crown Jewel. It'll be a good time. We got infamous Raider Loco here who says new Bloodline wins to build for War Games. Cody wins and Liv wins with help from Tiffany by accident. Still hoping Jade and Bianca retain. Orton gets killed. All right, I think for the most part we're along the same lines of
everything except for anyone's death.
But I mean, KO is a little savage. He is a little angry right now. He's done being a good little soldier. He wants to fight. Fight, Owens, fight. All right. Anthony Giuliano here says, "Are we agreeing Tiffany cashing in tomorrow?" I agree. And so does Robin. All right, we got infamous Raider Loco who says Tiffany
the podcast where I had to open my mouth.
Yeah, I was like, I'll just speak for Robin for a second. Infamous Raider Loco says Tiffany cash-in happens here for bigger pop. Sorry, cash in here for bigger pop, not there. Look, I get what you're saying, but let's be real. They got to do something for those Crown Jewel shows too. And I feel like they didn't do it at SummerSlam with Tiffany. They didn't do it at Bad Blood. You can't do a third one and then not do it, in my opinion. I know they've done so many cash-in teases, but specifically for these PLE cash-in teases, I feel where we're at in the story and how far we've gotten and how much they've teased Tiffany and Nia Jax and all of that, it has to happen at this point.
Yeah, it'll start to feel old and stale.
Yes.
It's been overt. It hasn't been like, the presence of the briefcase is a tease in and of itself. When somebody's walking around holding it, it's a tease in and of itself. When it's constantly referenced, when you're constantly sowing the seed of tension, when you're saying, you're putting into words that you're going to do it, eventually that then needs to be paid off quicker, or else those tactics aren't effective storytelling anymore.
Did you see Tiffany's giant ball on her forehead after Liv hit her with the Money in the Bank briefcase? I thought, oh shit, when I saw her, I thought she just had the ice just to sell it, and then she put it down and I see the big giant gash on her face and the big lump. Oh, that was brutal. I mean, it looked nasty when it happened.
Yeah, I mean, some of these, you know, these things, they hit you even just a little bit the wrong way in that area, you know, it's going to pop something.
Oof. All right, we got Anthony Giuliano here who says, will we see Rhea Ripley cost Liv Morgan the match after what happened on NXT? So I don't think so, because apparently Rhea Ripley's injury of her orbital bone is legit. I know that when she posted it, there was a lot of like, is this storyline? Is this not storyline? Of course, they use the NXT attack as a way to ride out Rhea Ripley, but Rhea Ripley will be taking some time off due to her orbital bone injury, which is legitimate, which is unfortunate. I was hoping it was a storyline thing, because Rhea Ripley just came back from a shoulder injury. So I feel bad for her having to go through 2 injuries back to back. So that's unfortunate. It does put a pause in the story that already felt like it was almost at the tail end of it. So it sucks that she didn't get to complete that, I'm guessing, in the timeline that they had originally anticipated.
No, yeah. I mean, look, you don't want to see anybody hurt, obviously, but you also, that's not an injury you can risk, because any sort of re-injury to that could be really bad. But it's also not one that's going to keep her, you know, it's going to heal and then she's going to be back. It's not even one, you know, like a bone like that, you know, it's not like you're rehabbing it, you know, to the same degree as other things. You just got to wait for it to heal. So Rhea Ripley return at the Royal Rumble. I can predict it right now.
Rhea Rumble.
The Rhea Rumble.
Rumble. I love it. All right, we got the dead man of RWT, Paul Morales, who's also been a DWM member for a whopping 21 months, says, Lord, please cash in anywhere but a Saudi show.
A Saudi show is the perfect place to cash in. Why do you think they're doing it? To cash in.
Wait, so why do you think it's the perfect place to cash in?
It's just a joke, because they go to Saudi for the money. You're cashing
in. Sorry, I didn't get the joke. It went over my head, but
why are they in Saudi in the first place? To cash in.
Oh man. I know how the fans feel, because obviously, you know, we want to happen here. Like this, we're you know, supporting and all of that stuff. But yeah, they're gonna throw them a bone. It feels like they throw them a lot of bones, but hey, it is what it is, right? The dead man also says, progressive my ass. Hey, look, man, I feel you, dude. Like, there's a reason why I'm not at these Saudi shows. Like, that's not gonna happen. But hey, this is something that they've been in business with them now forever. So I guess we just have to,
yeah, I mean, live with it. The WWE was actually, now look, they were run by Vince McMahon. So like, there's not much shame that's going to be involved when you're starting with that premise. But they were doing this a long time ago, before, you know, you saw Ronaldo go and sign with a Saudi league in soccer, Live Golf, you know, the Saudi funded golf thing. It's not as if many companies are not in bed with Saudi Arabia, and everyone's entitled to feel how they feel about it. I am thankful that they've given it, you know, a bit of an identity now, at least, because if you are going to make it a recurring thing and you are going to make it an annual show, I do like the fact that, all right, you're going to have this champion versus champion thing to distinguish a little bit for the entertainment value of the fans. The other aspects of that conversation can, of course, be had.
Yeah, of course. We also got Anthony Giuliano here, says, can someone explain to me about the WWE ID? So it's still a little confusing. There's still some questions that I think need to be, I think there's some stuff that needs to be clarified, but basically they partnered with, you know, schools like Reality of Wrestling, the Nightmare Factory, Rikishi school as well, and like Seth Rollins' school, and Booker T's school. And I think there's another one that I'm forgetting which one it is, but basically they're giving like this WWE ID, which is basically saying we're going to help give you guys the tools, access to performance centers, like basically helping them out to help their wrestlers get better and prepare them for the main stage in WWE, from my understanding. And then also those people are going to essentially have like a microscope where they are looked at and considered for jobs in WWE. And this sort of aligns with the NIL deal, because the NIL stuff that you've been seeing a lot of like NIL talents over on NXT, right? Because those are the, you know, your athletes, the ones that don't have a pro wrestling background. They have, you know, backgrounds in football and gymnastics and all of that. And so then they come into, to WWE, and that's sort of like their pipeline. And it feels like the focus has really been on them, but now they're doing, I don't know. I feel like the WWE ID thing, I personally, I feel like regardless of what school you're in or not in, if you're good, WWE was going to notice you. And if you're not, then, keep working until you do. I've seen some people really excited about it, and I've seen some people not excited about it. I feel like there's still, I feel like some of it is still a little confusing, to be honest, for me.
Yeah, I don't have enough in-depth knowledge to speak on it, at length. But I would say from what I did see, it seems like more of a positive than a negative. Anytime more of an opportunity is presented.
I think the problem why it looks like negative too is because it's almost like they're sort of monopolizing, this independent wrestling world.
Mm-hmm.
And you also don't want people to get like all high and mighty because it's like, oh, well, I'm WWEID approved, so now we can charge more and all of these things. And so that's where a lot of like the negativity comes from. So I 100% get it. Again, the way that I see it was regardless, I've worked indie shows where I have seen WWE scouts there sitting down, watching the shows, watching the talent. And those weren't WWE ID or anything. They were still there scouting talent regardless. So I don't know. It sounds like corporate hoo-ha to me, but I'm like, whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, corporations do
put
their names on things and
make it fancy. Yeah. I see it. I almost see it like as a gold star. Like, oh, well, you get a gold star because you are like I feel like regardless if you're not even part of those WWE ID programs or part of those schools, you're going to get noticed if you're good. And then also, I feel okay, Robin, if you're a wrestler, right, and you went to somebody's school like Booker T, if I were a wrestler, I would probably go to a school where I know, and if I wanted to go to WWE, if that was my goal, I would probably go to a school already that was tied to a WWE wrestler if that was the goal that I eventually wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? Like I would still have gone there regardless of whether or not it was a WWE ID program.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is the institutional corporate like prestige and branding in that sense. Though, I mean, I think if you're putting most performers in the industry on a polygraph test, the goal is at some point to get to WWE. Now there's different avenues that have presented themselves where it doesn't make it quite as fait accompli or finite that, that has to be the end result. But when you say professional wrestling to the casual person out on the street, they're thinking WWE in the first place. This is probably the way of WWE to try to make everybody, as many people as possible, even those who are entrenched, think that way.
I feel you. All right, we got Paul Morales here who says, look at this point. I don't really care that they have shows. Cool to continue storylines, but I don't care for the title changes when it isn't time. That's a Vince thing to do. We aren't there anymore. So in terms of like the title changing hands, I do think that I would 1000% be on board with Tiffany Stratton defeating, for example, Nia Jax to get the title. 1000% on point with that. I feel like I liked Nia Jax as a champion, by the way. I thought she's done perfectly fine. But dude, I'm a bigger Tiffany Stratton fan, so I'm ready to see that happen. So that's where I'm at too. So it's weird, right? You can argue whether or not you feel like it's time already for Tiffany Stratton. I kind of feel like I'm ready to go with it. Screw it. I'm good. Like I'm good. I'm ready to see it. I'm on board to make it happen and see it happen.
It's not also like a momentous thing. I mean, it's always significant when a title changes hands, but it's not like, Roman losing when he did, where had to be done exactly.
Or Cody
the right
finishing
way.
his story.
Yeah,
right.
Right. That had to be done exactly the right way in the biggest possible moment. Like these sort of things. Eventually, you need to accelerate the changes or the next thing or the next push or the next feud. So they have to happen at some of these shows. You can't otherwise they are just house shows.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like, imagine you're tuning into the show and then like nothing happens, and you're like, man, I just wasted all this time watching this show and nothing even happened. And it's Crown Jewel has been referred to as a glorified house show for since the beginning, since the very beginning of the first Crown Jewel. So, hey man, we'll be here. I'll be doing this watch along. So, and then Robin will be joining me for the post show. So we'll be chatting about what did or didn't happen and if it was worth our time to tune in. Paul, thank you so much as always for all the love and support. All right. Oh, we got another one here from Anthony Giuliano who says, Since Jordan Grace lost her championship, will we see her signing in NXT in January with her contract being up at the end of the year? I would imagine so. I can't imagine that, given how many times we've seen her now on WWE television, that she wouldn't be going to NXT to WWE. She could bypass the NXT roster and go straight into Raw or SmackDown. Let's be real. NXT's women's division is pretty stacked right now, so if they had Jordan go straight to the main roster, dude, I'm all here for that. She doesn't have to go to NXT. She could. It'd be great. Wonderful. But I think she might even be needed more so on the main roster.
Well, I mean, look, they sold her at the Rumble. They sell her in these photos, even like, taking pictures with Rhea and all that. So she's already been built in that kind of way where you don't need a runway. She's already, taken off.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Thank you so much, Anthony, for all of the super chats that you've been sending in. Alrighty, guys, that is our show. I want to thank you so much for coming in and hanging out with Robin and I. Let me see what's the upcoming schedule. Tomorrow, again, Crown Jewel stuff will be here. And then after that, next week, I'll be back for the Raw watch along. Next week is going to be interesting because Wednesday we are going to have NXT and AEW on the same night on a Wednesday. So we'll be here. Reg and Shinadu will be here covering both of those shows. And then Friday, I will be back with Robin to talk about SmackDown, and we'll continue the cycle from then on out. So thank you so much. Robin, what do you got to promote? Let the people know what's going on.
Sure. You can go check out my YouTube channel. There's been people from over here that have come over there. Over 10,000 subscribers now. Women's Fast Break on SI covering women's basketball. Denise actually helped me out with some Taylor Swift context.
I was finally able to contribute. I was so excited. It's funny because I got your text. So Robin texted me and he was like, "What's the friendship bracelet thing with Taylor Swift?" And I thought, why is Robin barely asking me about this now? Like, this is so old, right? And so I answered your question, and then I went on Twitter, and I saw that Caitlin Clark was at the show, and I'm like, oh, that's why Robin asked.
Yeah, and, like, that's the type of article, like, I was in a situation where I had to be usually I wouldn't be the one that actually wrote that article, but I had to write it, so it saved me a Google search for the context of that, and I figured you'd put it in a way that I could then, process in my brain and spit out in a way that made sense without me just regurgitating the information.
Yes. I'm glad to be of help. I always feel proud to come and help out people when it comes to Taylor Swift. Alrighty, everyone, that's it. That's our show. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to click that subscribe button. Check out the interview with Will Washington up right now on the channel. The interview with Trevor Lee, former Cameron Grimes, also up right now on the channel. Thank you, everybody. See you guys here bright and early tomorrow. Bye, everyone.